Hi there, and welcome to PSI TV. And I'm your host today, Phyllis Frase Charrette. And we have some great guests with us today. And I have Dr. Michell Krenek, who has a practice in San Antonio, Texas. And I also have Jeff Baird, the CEO of Baird Allstate Insurance Agency. And last but not least, I have Monica Jenkins. Good morning. Who is the corporate relations for Allstate Agency. And we're here today because PSI is product, service, and ideas, and we're here to bring you a very exciting product that Allstate has to offer specifically to chiropractors.
Right.
So, Jeff, I'm going to let you start and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help chiropractors.
Absolutely, love to. So my name's Jeff Baird. I own the Baird Insurance Agency. I've been having my relationship in my own practice with Allstate for about 13 years now. And we do a myriad of things, but one of our true focuses is working on working with the medical insurance industry, specifically chiropractors. We have people designed in specific roles in the agency that relate well with chiropractors and have an extensive knowledge of their background, and it helps us relate from a practice level. And being a small business owner myself, I'm able to relate to the business needs of a chiropractor owning their own business, because at the end of the day, we probably go through a lot of the same stresses and struggles and getting everything up and running, and then just wanting that peace of mind at night, knowing everything that we work so hard for, we get to retain and keep.
Yeah, so I would imagine that you have a passion for insurance, right?
I have a passion for, yes, I have a passion for insurance, and I have a passion for small business owners specifically, because going through this myself, one of the best terms ever used to me was, oh, you thought you were going into the American dream, but it turned out to be a nightmare. So your first 3 or 4 years, getting everything set up right and established is so crucial. And I always like to say we want to grow with you. We want to do more than insure you. There's a lot of people that will insure you. We want to grow with you from start to finish. And as you expand and as you move on and as you get bigger, we want to be there for every step of the way.
And you kind of feel that way, Dr. Krenek, with your patients, right?
I do.
From the time they're born until the time they leave the earth, right?
That is true.
Okay,
Thanks.
so this is a great partnership already. Monica, tell us a little bit about you.
So my name is Monica Jenkins. I am the Senior Commercial Business Consultant for the Texas region. So basically what I do is I work with all of the Allstate agents to help them really bring commercial into their agency. And so our passion, like Jeff said, is a small business owner. Mike Barton, who's the president of Allstate Business Insurance, has basically a big passion himself for we're going to offer our business owners something beyond insurance. So beyond the stuff that's inside the office, beyond what happens to your office building, there's so many other risks that a business owner, specifically chiropractors, face day to day, and I don't think they realize that there is coverage for those risks. So what we're hoping to bring to the table is knowledge and awareness and letting you know we want to be there to help.
Great. And it was amazing how this, just a little background of how this partnership began is 2 years ago. I was in Baltimore attending a seminar there, talking to exhibitors for our Parker Baltimore seminar. And I met a great representative from Allstate, and we started talking. And I've been in the profession for over 25 years, and I did not know that there was a specific liability insurance policy geared towards chiropractors. And then we started talking. I got hooked up with you guys, and you participated the first time with Parker when?
It was I guess the big show was the one here on campus.
Last
October. It was absolutely fantastic. And I think that at that point, that's when I was like, corporate, what can we do to come behind this university? Because the people are great, the staff is great, the passion that you guys have to help your students and your alumni be successful was something I had not experienced before. And being able to meet all the DCs in person, and they called it the homecoming, it was just such a family close-knit feel that it was beyond anything that I expected or experienced with other industries. It's fantastic.
And that's always been our goal, right, Dr.
Right.
Krenek, is to have that family feeling at the seminars, and that's why we thought Allstate would be a great fit. So y'all participated with us in Dallas as a vendor. And what was the response when the chiropractors started talking to y'all?
You know, I think initially when they would walk by our booth, they would say, oh, we have our home and we have our auto with you. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic. Thank you for being customers, but we're actually here to talk to you about your business.
Okay.
So that's when they would stop and we say, you know, everybody thinks about business insurance as the stuff inside the building. If somebody trips and falls, the general liability, as everybody knows. But then when we start talking about their day-to-day and what happens when you do this, and did you know there's coverage for that, then it was more of almost like a jaw-dropping. I've had that happen, and I didn't know that there was an insurance for that specific risk.
Okay. And then as it progressed, they are now one of our sponsors for the Parker seminars, and you had another team that participated with you, with us at our Vegas seminar. And they had a great experience there. So what we're here today is to bring those specific situations to life and more of an awareness of how chiropractors can have better coverage, feel like they're in good hands and that their practice has been protected. And so, Dr. Krenek, I'm going to turn it over to you. When you first started your practice, what things did you need or what did you feel not comfortable with as far as a business owner?
Almost everything. I think this is really good. This is going to be a good podcast too because it's going to be very informative. Because like you said, everyone thinks that Allstate is for car. I would say car, and that's about it, right? So I wouldn't know all those different things, and I feel like going into practice, we don't know a lot of the things that we need anyway. My joke is, as long as you pay taxes and have a low overhead, you could probably make it. But there's all these other things that you actually do need that you just don't think about. And even I feel like I'm going to learn a lot because we've already talked a little bit before we started. And wow, there's a lot of things that we do that we don't know we could be held accountable for because we don't necessarily think like that because we don't think in that realm a lot of the time. We're thinking about healing patients and doing all that, and we don't ever think about that. So it's good to know. And
it's a very cliche answer, but you don't know what you don't know. And you learn that very, very quickly when you open those doors.
Right. This is true. You really don't know. I mean, it's not even out of... we just don't know what we actually need. So this is good because you're going to tell us everything that we actually do need.
Right, and that's part of what we want to take off. So, and Jeff can go into it more, but his theme is really we want to grow with you. Mm-hmm. So as he starts with someone, whether they're just starting their practice or they're 3 years into it, everything as things grow, your needs change. And you're completely right. Your focus should be on taking care of your patients and making sure that that's being done. So we just want to be able to have the conversation and go, let's make sure that you're okay if and when this happens, and then you don't have to hopefully worry about it.
And things do change. Like you may need something in the first year that you don't need everything, but then as you get bigger and you grow and you have employees and you have cars and all of that you may actually need more coverage or things that we would just not know to get.
And the equipment's a big piece of it. As you start getting into the equipment purchases and imaging and all that. Whoever the lease provider is or the finance provider behind that, they're going to want to make sure that that item is specifically covered. And that's a big thing that we will get into with more established chiropractors' offices. As they grow and they add equipment, we specifically cover things and have to provide information and documentation to those companies that may be providing that lease or that financing for that piece of equipment.
I was just going to say, I'm sure we'll go into specifics, but I feel like a lot of chiropractors go out just thinking they need general liability,
Right.
So, and that's what a lot of people will even tell you, hey, or you need it to lease a space, you need this in case your water spills on the floor and someone falls. So I think that's what a lot of chiropractors actually think that they need. So that's why another reason I think this is going to be really good and informative.
Yeah, so why don't we get into some of those specifics? I was thinking, some things that you had talked to me about the employee embezzlement and the data breach and things like that. So why don't you take it off, Jeff?
And so it starts when you open the door, and it starts when you sign the lease. And there's equipment before you put your equipment in, there's equipment that you may or may not be responsible for depending on how your lease reads. And we have mechanical breakdown information if the AC unit goes out. No one wants to sit inside a chiropractor office in August getting adjusted when it's about 102 outside. So we have mechanical breakdown coverage from the very beginning. But yeah, your general liability is what everybody thinks about. But the tables and the equipment in there we do. But employee dishonesty is a big deal. Finding staff, no matter what profession you're going into, is always probably a struggle. And so you always want to make sure we have employee dishonesty coverage on there in case anything were to happen that was not above board. You want to make sure your insurance agent's there to be able to provide that coverage for you as well.
Do you have a specific example? I mean, besides embezzlement, but do you have like an example of employee dishonesty? I mean, what would that fall under?
I think, well, basically anything. When you're doing your books and you have someone up front taking cash payments, taking check, credit cards, whatever it may be, I know obviously depending on the insurance, some people have to pay cash up front, right? And so if that person, decides to put it in their pocket besides the register, those things can happen. And I've known doctors that have had people for years as employees, and it was years later that they didn't find out, and they're thinking, I'm at a loss, like that's money lost. But no, there actually is insurance coverage for that, and that's employee dishonesty.
And it starts off as something simple. It could be as innocent enough as, I was making change, because they didn't have the correct dollar amount, so I was making change, and then it can just lead to something further and further. And so it's just, it may not be intentional to begin with, but towards the end it's intentional, and that's why you have the
And
coverage.
by then, things get so far out of control that you're in thousands of dollars versus hundreds of dollars.
Yes.
And so the beginning coverage is like $25,000, which is good, really good.
And so that's paid back to
That's what I was gonna
the
say.
chiropractor?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That was my question, actually. I was going to say, so even what about a couple of years, or you find out someone was stealing maybe even a few months ago, the money does come back to you after?
It does.
Okay.
It does. So there's limits of insurance.
Got it,
so
yeah.
you can say, I want up to X amount of coverage.
okay.
And if you say, I want $50,000 in coverage, and they steal $45,000,
Okay.
well, you're going to get the
Wow.
$45,000.
And it's good to have a relationship with your agent, because there's certainly a claims process to go
Absolutely.
through.
Right.
The agent's not going to sit there and say, you got it, and write you a check.
Right.
There is a claims process to go through. That's
Right.
why we have such good advocates on our side from the corporate side with our claims representatives. They will sit there and walk, okay, this is what they need to do. A police report needs to be filed. This documentation is needed. So that's why we have a full-blown claims process. From an agency perspective, we're going to set this policy up right from the beginning, and we're going to have that conversation with you that this can happen, not to scare you,
Right.
but just to show you the value of the SHIELD program that Allstate's created for chiropractors. And then when it becomes into that process, we bring our claims advocate team in, and they work hand in hand with us and the chiropractor, making sure everything's done properly on that end.
Yeah, and our profession is such a loving service. It's really hard to think that an employee or a loyal staff member would actually even think about doing something like that. But I'm sure that just having peace of mind, not that you're going to be suspicious, going,
Right.
okay, I wonder if this employee is going to steal from me, but knowing that if that does happen, you actually have someone that's going to be on your side and walk you through the process.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's obviously an extreme example, right? Because nobody wants to
Right.
think
Right.
Yeah.
think about that. But we were talking earlier about even sending an employee, a staff member, in their car to go run an errand, whether it is make a deposit, go get breakfast, go get coffee, whatever it may be, go get some sticky notes.
Wow, yeah.
If they are in an accident in their car, then they're on company time to do that. And essentially, if the person who is hurt, they can come back on the business and sue. So we have coverage
We
for
have
that.
specific
too.
coverage
Yeah.
for that. Employee
was just-
non-auto. So
That was
yeah.
something I didn't know. And you just mean in general if they're doing something for the company, not
For the
even if they're
company.
clocked in just because they're going to get Post-its or
Correct.
dinner or
Getting-
lunch or something.
Getting coffee for the
Yeah.
coffee pot.
Wow.
Yeah,
And-
if they're clocked in, they're
Yeah.
on employee time. So
Wow.
Yeah, it is amazing. Unfortunately, again, with society, somebody gets hit, they go, "Oh, you're on company time, huh?" Well, then that brings a whole lot of more dollar signs into the world.
Well, we just think we'd adjust them, right? And they should be good for
yeah, exactly.
Like, come on.
and that's that's the great thing about what we do. It's you're helping people. Chiropractors are helping people. They're helping people get better, and they're helping people get whole. We're doing the same thing with the business owner. We're helping that business owner to stay whole. They have their own stress and worries at night. They don't need this. This is our job. So it's a true partnership. It's a true collaboration. And I think the relationship piece of what specific agencies that bring into the Allstate world, I think it's crucial. I think it's crucial to have a personal relationship with that person that's taking care of these needs, so you can have an honest discussion. Doing it on the internet, it's an option. Absolutely, it's an option. It's quick, it's easy. But did you have the discussion where those topics brought up to trigger, oh, maybe we should have added that coverage? So that's where the relationship with an agent, I think, comes into play.
And I think it parallels very well with our profession, because we feel like our profession is a proactive profession. We want people to come see chiropractors before they get into trouble.
Exactly.
Before they can't walk,
Exactly.
or, things like that. So I believe that communicating this with our profession about, let's be proactive with your coverage versus waiting until you do have an employee dishonesty case, or the car accident, or the equipment breaking down, or the data breach.
Right.
So that's why I feel that this a partnership goes very well together, because we're doing the same thing, but just in different avenues,
just
right?
in different avenues. And I think it's I think the family piece that you mentioned earlier, I think it becomes extended family, because when it comes to dealing with a specific Parker alumni, that's different for us. That's special to us. And so we have someone designed to take care of Parker in my agency. And it's like, this is family. You treat them like family, and you make sure they know this, this, and this, because we don't want anything happen to family.
Because I think that, if memory serves me right, you hired a new insurance agent, and he's been under chiropractic care for a really, really long time.
I did. I hired a young gentleman that has great commercial experience, but he also played college baseball. And he was a pitcher in college baseball and got to pitch in the College World Series. And his deal was, chiropractors got me through my athletic career. And so that's going to be our lead with the chiropractors that we insure and talk to, and because we want to take care of you. My passion is business. My passion is starting this business and making sure your business, that I grow with your business. But I got someone in place who's passionate about chiropractors. Meant I had a college baseball career.
And I believe both of y'all are under chiropractic care too.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what makes, I think, the sponsorship and the partnership even more special, is because you understand, not only do you have a product that is great, you also understand the method and the small business side of what chiropractors, because when you graduated from school, Dr. Krenek, did you ever think that you were going to be the entrepreneur that you were and have to manage books and look at insurance policies and have a CPA? I mean, did you ever really think that it was of that magnitude?
Well, honestly, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I knew I'd be successful. I knew I'd have a business, but I did not know what it entailed, which I think is really special that you have someone there for Parker people, because it would be nice for each person to sit down and see what we don't know, because Phyllis is right about the fact that we're very much into the let's stay positive, let's not put that out there, let's not think that someone, we're going to rear end someone and they're going to say, oh, you're a doctor. I mean, it's not that it has to be the car situation, but you hear that and you're like, oh, I don't want to put that out there. But I mean, if you sit down and talk with someone like a family member and they tell you, hey, you don't have to think about this all the time, we'll take care of you because we're here for you, then we can get that and make sure we're covered, but then we don't have to think about it and we can do our thing and know that we're taken care of.
And honestly, that's an ideal example, because it goes beyond just insuring the office. It goes beyond insuring a company car, putting things in the name of a company versus in leaving everything in your individual name. And that's where I get passionate about it as starting my own business. Do I leave everything in my personal name? Is everything wide open to something like that? Or do I start separating things with LLCs and we insure the LLCs separately? So I think that's another thing when you have a relationship with a person, with a personal agency. I think that's just an added benefit to the coverages.
Right. So give us another policy coverage that you would think a chiropractor might not need or have the awareness that they potentially would need that? What can you think of? Because I know there's so many.
Well, you look at the hot buttons in society today with data protection, with customer information. That's a huge hot button. We've got that covered. Do you want to get specific on that?
So, there's two, and we have two coverages. One's data compromise, and that's really I guess it's Lord & Taylor that just had their data breach, and they're having to tell everybody about it, right? So that's where the data breach would kick in and say, okay, we're telling all of the other companies or all of our customers, this happened, we're making you aware of it. But then there's still the bug or the virus or whatever that's in your office, so you have to pay or get that resolved, and that's where cybersecurity comes in, because you were hacked, and the cybersecurity takes care of what's happening inside the walls of the practice, and the data compromise is what's outside. Another thing that unfortunately people don't think about, but it's a hot button today, is just employee practice liability. So wrongful termination in Texas is a right-to-work state, completely agree, but there are people that will try to take you to court, and that court's going to cost you lawyers. And so the employee practice liability insurance helps with the duty to defend in those cases. Unfortunately, sexual misconduct is also a really big hot topic, and that's where employee practice liability would be able to trigger and kick in and assist. And so those, when you're talking about what's happening in the world and what do I really need to think about, those are probably the major issues. But there's coverage as small as I lost the keys to my office and now I need to get everything rekeyed and get new keys. We have coverage for that.
Yeah. Has that ever happened to you?
Just losing the keys?
And that's typically,
a building manager knows me well. No.
And that's typically what we do. We typically deal with smaller things. We have to. We're not trying to scare people. We're just trying to raise awareness. You're typically dealing with smaller claims, fender benders in the company car. You're typically dealing with those smaller things, but at the end of the day, it's the big things that put you out of business.
Correct. Right.
They don't hurt you, they put you out of business, and we want to make sure that's not a concern for anyone we deal with. We want to make sure you work so hard for this business, you built this business, we want to make sure you keep this business.
Along with the data being compromised, we also talked a little bit about, or I saw that if you lose your computer gets stolen, or for some reason you can't get the records or the payments, or the office catches on fire because you leave a candle or something like that. I mean, what about those things?
So those would be under valuable papers and records. Again, something that's standard with the policy. And I know people think of valuables, papers, and workers, and they're thinking, oh, I don't do paper files anymore. I don't have a file cabinet and all those stuff. And some people do, but that's part of the protection of being able to get that, fire being a worst case scenario. But, even going back to what's in your office, as you grow, you may add a TV or two. You may add a new machine, and so what Jeff's team wants to do is sit down at your policy renewal and say, let's talk about how you've grown. Have you added more records that maybe we need to increase that? Did you buy a couple more TVs that we have your property listed as $75,000 and you've bought a couple more things, so now we need to increase it to $75,000. And so that's the whole grow with you. But yeah, when you look at some of these coverages, I think the verbiage is antiquated, but the coverage is still there in case there is a major loss for whatever. And we have one that's business income and extra expense. So, to Jeff used the example earlier, your next door neighbor, something happens, but it's putting you where you can't open your practice. Well, there's a coverage that we will help pay for the extra expense in case you need to go open in a temporary space. Or if you're shut down for 12 months, we'll be able to say, okay, you were shut down because of this cause of loss, and we're going to reimburse you for what you would have been earning.
If we have loss of income on the process. Yeah.
Correct. And to Jeff's point, and having somebody who's very knowledgeable of these coverages is absolutely, it's vitally important, because that way when you have to make that call to claims and you do have to have something else to think about, your agent will be able to say, this is what I'm familiar with, this is what we're going to need, so that it's a smooth start to finish process.
And those things do happen, because I have a friend in Dallas that lightning struck his office, and I mean, you wouldn't think something like that would happen, but it was a big
Right.
storm, and
You have a coverage issue. Yeah,
Yeah.
you absolutely have. And no one's in a standalone building anymore. I mean, very few people are in a standalone building. We're all in strip centers, or we're all in an office condos, and it might be the empty condo next door to you where the hot water heater flooded or the sink line busted and it flooded into your office, and so there's no coverage on their end, so it has to fall on your end. So.
Yeah, wow. Little things you don't want to think of that can
And it
mount
takes-
into
yeah.
a really big thing.
And that's a
takes a
good thing. That's our job.
conversation.
That's our job to think about it. So.
So, you guys have a small business resource center on your website, correct? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Correct. Sure. So if you go to allstate.com/business, you're going to find just a range of topics, and there is chiropractors has a specific, I guess, button for a computer. And when you go on that, it's going to go into more detail as to what are the risks that you have. Again, not to scare anyone, but what are the risks that are out there of owning a business and running it day to day? What is the coverage that we have, and at what value does it bring if, should you get that coverage? So that is vitally important for those that, just kind of want to read, get a little more background information. And then absolutely, we recommend you go in and speak with, Jeff or his team to say, okay, I kind of read this and I do have more employees, and maybe I thought, well, what is it that you're thinking? But just so you can get versed on everything, it is available on allstate.com.
But weren't there other tools in there too? There were some HR, like human resource, like hiring and firing, and so it really is
beyond insurance.
Beyond insurance, it's more how to be a small business.
It's a human resource center. It's a human resource center for hiring, firing, documenting, things like that.
Yeah, small business connection. So the policyholders will get extra access to say, some practices don't have an HR person on board, but
do you have an HR manager?
Yeah, Michelle.
Exactly.
But there are processes to, okay, this person's really been tough for the past 90 days. What do I need to do to start making sure I have that documentation in place? And there's a handbook that we give, which can sometimes cost thousands of dollars, where simple things, right? Like, hey, probably helps if you show up to work on time, and you need to come dressed appropriately, and you have to call in sick. I mean, some of the things that without that in paper and without that signature, somebody can go, I didn't know, and you fired me for no reason.
I thought I had 2 months vacation.
Yeah. And then that's where the wrongful termination comes in, and you got to be able to say, well, no, they were really late 100 times. No, and again, worst case scenario, but those things do happen, and as a practice grows, you add more employees, and you just your exposure becomes bigger.
And Dr. Krenek, I mean, as far as experience, I mean, what was your level of experience when you hired your first employee or your first associate? I mean, how comfortable did you feel with that process?
Well, I knew a lot because I listened to you speak, but I mean, it's hard. And I had to do a lot of searching on my own and go out to different seminars. And I even asked you tons of questions, right, just to figure it out. So it would have really helped to be able to get help immediately, just going in, so you avoid making those mistakes. That's what we try to do anyway when we're talking to incoming chiropractors. Don't reinvent the wheel. Be modern, but don't reinvent it. Like,
correct.
Let's try to make it so we don't make all those mistakes, because some of them can cost a lot of money
And a lot of time that is just, you can't get back.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys are local in Dallas, but we also have our listeners that are all over the country. Does Allstate provide this type of service throughout the United States?
Absolutely. There's Allstate agencies across the country. We deal within my agency, we deal with about 10 states that we work with. But yeah, there are Allstate agencies across the country that can help. And chances are a third of your listeners are already insured with an Allstate home or auto representative, and all they have to do is bring up the topic, and that agent probably can sit there and assist you and make a phone call and make sure you have the proper coverage as well.
Yeah, and if, we do have a specific Parker website, that way if they go on that site and they ask a question, that's going to be filtered to an agent that is informed well-versed in everything that we've talked about, because we have 10,000 agents in the country.
Wow.
And not all of them are as versed in the commercial space, which is, where my job comes in and really goes in and tells them, but when somebody calls because of the partnership that we have, and somebody calls in or uses the internet to try to find more information, and they know that they're from Parker, it's going to go to somebody that's very familiar with what we're doing.
Wow, you guys have really thought this out, right?
It's important to us. And, Jeff has licenses in 10 states. So if he is or someone in one of his states, and we're looking to get more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that way you know that you're going to get somebody that really knows what's going on and everything we've talked about and how to take care of the business, and you'll be, for lack of better terms, in good hands.
Good hands, and again, we want and let us grow with you.
Yeah.
That's so important to me. Just let us grow with you.
I want to say one thing. I think it's important, or the action step that chiropractors should take is just to contact y'all, because again, there's
Absolutely.
so much. We didn't even talk about everything that y'all can cover, but one thing I wanted to ask about, because it's so broad, that things we don't actually know that y'all cover because we think you cover just car insurance, but is about the board, if you had a board review protection. I just wanted to bring that up because, it's like if a patient isn't happy with something, or if you go before a disciplinary board, something like that. Would you just talk about that for a second?
Correct. So it's board review, and I guess it's pretty much everything costs money. So when you are put in front of the board, it all comes back to the duty to defend. So the duty to defend everything triggers something different. So if you didn't have the board review protection and you did need to go in front of the board and pay for lawyer fees,
Right.
whatever it is, that coverage is gonna help with that. So whatever it may be, but yeah, it is. So that's another one where you go, well, no, I have this protection. I'm like, well, let's think about this, because everything is separate, every situation is separate. And going back to Jeff's point with claims, it's, claims is going to say, well, you have this coverage, but there's a lot of other things out there that we should think
Just
about.
interesting to know, because I would never have known these things.
And I'll go back to the relationship, because as you're growing and as your business grows, that becomes client base grows, that becomes more and more of a risk. And are you acquiring another practice? Are you a 2-practice location, or are you a 3-practice location now? So those things become more and more important. That relationship becomes more and more important, and that coverage review becomes more and more important, because as you grow, the needs grow.
Right. And your exposure, the more patients
Right.
you get,
Exposure
right?
goes,
The more patients you have, it's a great thing to grow, absolutely. But then that just means, okay, that's more money in the door, that's more employees I have to hire. It just all equates to more risk, which is where we sit down and go, okay, what happened since last year, or what happened in the last 6 months?
Right.
Did you go out and buy a new machine, a couple new chairs, a couple new tables that we need to think about adding to your protection?
Now, we all know that chiropractors get busy in their practice serving their patients. Do you do a regular audit on a regular basis where you'll come in and go, okay, let's look at what we had when we met, 6 months ago to where we are today?
We do an annual review process, so it's very important for us. We have it all on a calendar-based system, and we will review the policies on an annual basis and make the phone call and talk to the chiropractor. Has anything changed? Have you grown? Have you hired? Have you done anything else other than what we have right now? So yes, we do that annual review, because again, that's where we get to grow with you. And if we don't do that, we're not doing our job.
Oh, I remember when in Georgia, when I was in a practice, our insurance agent never called us. It was up to our agent going, oh yeah, we got a new table. Oh well, yeah, I'll come over and look at that sometime.
Yeah.
And so, but as an office, you don't really think of
Time
that
goes by so
stuff
fast.
because time goes by so quick.
Right.
You don't think, oh, I got to call my insurance agent to add a new employee or add a TV, and then when something does happen, they're like,
I didn't have it.
I didn't know
Right.
you had that.
And
So-
you're exactly right. And I going back to it's funny, we call it the CPR,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
CPR, you're breathing life back into something, right? And it's customer protection review.
Okay.
So, when Jeff will be like, I have a CPR at 1, I'm like, okay, customer protection review. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. As things
No one's passing out at 1 o'clock.
as things grow and things happen, it is important to sit down and go, let's think about where you were and where you are, and what do we need to review. So
Yeah.
it is a once a year.
And we do that because we go so far as to offering benefits for your staff and for you. And so it just as you grow, the needs grow.
And we'll be there to try to help with everything.
And then one last part of our sponsorship and partnership is that you are also starting to get involved with our students, because
Yes.
one of Parker's goals is to set our students up for success when they
Absolutely.
graduate. So talk a little bit about what you have done from the student perspective and what the future goal is with student affairs.
So it's been so great the past year. We've been to career fairs, we've been to graduation, we've been to, what is normally as the Parker Homecoming, which I absolutely enjoyed that event. So this year we've already done a career fair, working with Chris Ritchie to start with some lunch and learns. We'll be at every graduation, we'll be at every career fair, and, obviously they're not going into the insurance business, but what was it, 2 weeks ago?
It was
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, and there's no...
The conversations were amazing, where they were just like, I had no idea.
And it's not too early to start talking to
Right.
us. It's just, and that was the biggest thing I picked up from the career fair was, well, I've got 6 months before I grad. This is this is the time you need to start the conversation. Are you going to work for someone? Are you going to work for your own? And then we get into, are you going in as an individual? Have you thought about incorporating? And so all that matters with how we set you up. So the career fair was eye-opening, and in the talent base that goes to Parker, it was eye-opening in that. And the big dreams of the students going to Parker, it's great seeing that and how we fit into it. So it was a really good experience.
And I can see where the students, and you can probably agree with this, is they're not concerned about what the end picture looks at. They're
Right.
concerned about passing the
now.
boards
Right.
and, getting through the 12 exams that they have, and things like
Right.
that. But I think for y'all right now, it's the awareness to
Right.
at least get it in the back of your mind so that when you do get out there, it doesn't take you longer to set up your
Up and running,
practices, right?
correct.
Would
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Right, and to build, I think it's important that you get involved early too, because we don't always think about. We actually never think about those things. It's really true. We don't necessarily want to have to worry about those things. So because we want to we want to do our thing. And so it's nice that you build that relationship, because we don't know that stuff, and I'm okay saying I don't know anything about that
Sure.
stuff. So if I trust someone, like what you're building, and I can tell you're passionate and you care about us as chiropractors. So I
Absolutely.
think that's what's very important, is for them to see that, because then you can say, oh, remember, you need to do this, so we need to come in and audit the office, and because we won't really think about it.
Well, you got so much to think about.
Right.
That's it. That's just let us take that off your plate, because the 12 exams, the 6 months of studying, that's a blink of an eye. That's a blink of an eye, and now it's time to open up. Now what? So that's why we start early.
Right. And you'll be back with us at the Parker Seminar Homecoming, October 5th through 7th.
Yes, and in between then, we will be on campus as much as you will allow us to be here so that we can talk to everyone, and they're open to ask us questions, whether it's try 1, try 8, whatever it may be, just so they can really start to go, okay, I have 4 years, but then they wake up and I have 6 months. And so that's where we're going to be here as much as you'll have us, to make sure we're helping the students, because it's a fantastic student body, and the staff is amazing. I mean, just even when we were at some of the other shows, and you guys are always so generous and saying, come talk to Allstate. This is what they do. This is what they have. It just is such a fantastic partnership that I've really, really enjoyed.
Great. And you are going to be featured in our April alumni newsletter. So there'll be more information about what you do and who you are, and why you're
Absolutely.
joining forces with us.
Absolutely. We'll be spreading the Allstate gospel as much as we can.
So any last words as we close this PSI podcast?
I think for me, in my role, it's so fulfilling to know that you've made a difference. And so in working with my agents, to know that I've been able to go in and show them something that was eye-opening to them. And so in working with Jeff as long as I have, it was really good to see the passion that he has, that I have, to make sure that small businesses are successful. Because I know the small business term is so relative, right? Because you guys could be millionaires and still considered small business. But to see the passion that he has to make sure that they're successful is important to me.
Great. Yeah.
I just, again, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to start with the student body, and I'm looking forward to working with the alumni as well. And hopefully I get to attend some of the fun events that Monica's getting to attend and get invited as well. So, yeah, we do look forward to being on campus and just meeting with more and growing this thing as fast as we can grow it.
Great. Dr. Krenek?
I would just encourage anyone listening or watching to set up an appointment and just come see what we don't know, and don't be afraid to say that we don't know it, because we're chiropractors and that's what we've studied to do and that's what we're supposed to do well, not necessarily what y'all do. So that's what I would encourage people to do, is just at least make an appointment so we can see.
I completely agree with you.
And what was the website again?
So it's allstate.com/business. And then once you go into there, you'll be able to find a specific spot for chiropractors. And then you go into that portal and all the information will be there.
Okay.
And then
Great.
locals can just call Jeff Baird Agency.
Just Google Jeff Baird Insurance Agency and you'll find me
Okay.
anywhere.
And, and then that last name is
Baird, Baird.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like the bread.
Like the bread. Like the bread.
Is that Texas bread?
It is
It
a Texas
is.
bread.
It
There's a
is.
Baird,
See,
there's a
that's
Baird
why I
Texas
wouldn't
as
know.
well. So.
Goodness.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on PSI TV. And remember, success is determined by your faith, confidence, and belief in your product, service, and ideas.